What is up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Carrie.
What's up?
Mike is going to show up at some point during the podcast. We were planning on getting started at 8 o'clock Eastern, and then he sent us a Facebook message with a screaming baby, which, you know, I've been there. I get it. Totally understand how that might delay you. It is a news week this week. We had no news. Well, we didn't have no news last week, but we didn't talk about any news last week. And so now we have 2 weeks worth of news to discuss, and it's a lot of big stuff. We'll just run through some housekeeping real quick, though, before we get there. Of course, you can download this show wherever you download fine podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio version, you can also watch this on YouTube by going to youtube.com/densepixels. You should also check out all the other TNP Studio shows that are all across the internets, and they're all very good, and they're all amazing. And you can also sign up for our premium content by going to densepixels.com/premium to get access to all of our premium slate of shows. And finally, you can support us while you're supporting a giant corporation by going to densepixels.com/Amazon. Because let's face it, you're going to spend the money anyway. Yeah. Speaking of spending some money that they weren't planning on, boy, has this Unity saga really devolved over the course of the last week. So when we recorded last week's show, the news had just come out that Unity had put out this blog post that they were like, hey, like, we're going to start charging developers and publishers per install of these games instead of just charging a flat licensing fee. Or sorry, in addition to charging the flat licensing fee that you need to do Unity. And they didn't really offer any details besides that. And so the game development community had a collective freak out about this, as they're wont to do. Now, a couple important bits of context that we did not have last week that have evolved this week. When we were talking about this, I forgot that the former CEO of EA, John, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a microtransaction to buy bullets when you had to reload your gun, Riticello, is now the CEO of Unity. And has been for 10 years.
Yeah.
Much. And
so, remember when EA was voted like the worst company in the world?
This guy was during John Riticello's stewardship. So that's number one.
That's who we're dealing with here.
That's who we're dealing
with. Same flavor.
Number two, something that I did not realize is that Unity also, and this is more applicable in the mobile gaming space. Unity has also like an ad capture platform as well. I don't remember what it's called, but Unity basically has an ad service.
We'll get to it momentarily.
Well, right. It's important to know because it might come up later. You'll be shocked to learn as we learn about this. So, again, indie devs all around the world were freaking the fuck out about it. Innersloth, who makes Among Us, is just like, hey, like, we're going to take our existing game that's already very successful and port it onto another engine because this is fucking insane. Massive Monster, who developed Call to the Lamb, joked that they were going to take down, like they were just going to take Call to the Lamb down off of game services on January 1st. If this happened, I don't think that that's actually going to happen, but you know, still
we'll see.
They threatened, right? We'll see. The folks who make Slay the Spire, who don't ever put out press releases or comment on anything.
Right, Aggro Crab?
No, not Aggro Crab. I can't remember what this company's called. They put out a notice saying, "Hey, like, we don't ever talk about this shit. We've had a game in development for 2 years that nobody knew about. That's been on Unity that we were developing on Unity that we're now probably going to move and shift to another development platform." And they even call it out like, "Hey, we never released public statements. That's how bad you fucked up, Unity, you fucking clowns." So developers are pissed. And I think the thing that Unity really fucked up, and I think that no matter what happens, because I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot of backpedaling. We're already starting to see it. We'll detail that in a second. But no matter what, Unity has really fucked themselves. Because even if they walk this thing back 100% and are just like, psych, just kidding, like, this was a terrible idea, we're not going to do any of this stuff, they've broken the trust, right? Like they've shown
lost.
Yeah.
devs at this point. I mean, the link that we have in the show notes goes to quotes Tom Francis, who's worked on Gunpoint, Heat Signature, Tactical Breach, Wizards, among others. Really sort of laid it out pretty plain and simple. He said this is an astonishing scumbag move, not because of how much it shakes out to, but because a partner who can and will change how much of your revenue you owe them after you've made and released your games needs to be avoided like the plague. And I'm sure that's what every other dev that's ever used Unity is feeling right now. It's just like, why would we ever go back to Unity if this is the bullshit they're going to try and pull over us?
Well, and again, they were going to not only do this for like new games that were coming out, but this was like retroactive. Like they were like, hey, like even if you're already existing game that uses Unity, we're going to start charging you for installs, which is not the agreement that was made when that developer or that publisher first signed up to use it. And like all of these common sense questions came out immediately after this announcement, like that you'd think that they would have thought to ask themselves before announcing this and have answers prepared for what's going to happen. Like, hey, like what if it's a Game Pass game? What if it's a charity bundle, a game given away to charity bundle? So, and their responses to that, by the way, have been terrible. They're alleging like, oh, somehow charity bundles will be exempt. How? I don't know.
How? Right.
If it's like a subscription service game, like a Game Pass or a PS Plus, apparently the subscription provider, so Sony or Microsoft, will be responsible for the bills
on the hook for that,
which I'm sure that they were well aware of before. You know, this is a thing that was happening, and then they backtracked and said, oh no, it's only going to be for like the first install, the initial install of the game, because people said, well, what if people on the internet use this as a new term, a new way of griefing developers, where they just like run a bot that deletes and installs the game over and over because to hit this developer. We already see review bombing. What if you saw install bombing? And they're like, oh no, it's just the initial install will be the one. But that's
how are you going to be able to
tell? And people ask, how are you going to track it? And they're the way that they answer that question. Well, basically, oh, trust us. Like we have ways.
Right?
Well, would you care to share? Well, no, but just trust us. Like we'll send you the bill. It'll all be above board. But of course, there's nothing publicly available to verify. So like if you have a dispute and say, oh no, I don't think this is correct, what access to data do you have to be able to say one way or the other whether or not Unity's trying to fucking hose you or not? Like it's insane. And kind of quietly, the real reason for this has emerged. The real reason for this policy change has emerged because they have said that if you have ads in your game and you decide to use their ad service, which is called Level Play, well, they'll just waive these extra install fees. No problem. So that's really the crux of the argument then, because what we don't realize is that Level Play for Unity, and again, mobile, you guys that listen to us know, like it's kind of a blank space for us. Level Play makes up literally half of Unity's annual revenue. Like it literally accounts for around 50% of their annual revenue every single year. So of course,
they're trying to boost the revenue that they get through that and supplement the revenue that they already get through that by charging people who refuse to switch from their competitors, namely a platform called AppLovin.
Yeah. So basically, Unity, for all intents and purposes, is trying to hold their developers hostage. Say, it's a nice game you got there. It should be a shame if someone charged you every time it was installed somewhere along the lines. But for a small service fee, this is the shit the mob does, basically.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, basically what Unity is saying is either use our shit or pay us.
Right. Insane.
Or go fuck yourself.
But again, how does that also? But like, okay, on mobile, I guess that makes sense. How does that correlate to console games? Like console games, unless they're like free to play, don't typically have
exactly
an ad service thing in there. Also interesting, and again, this really also kind of gives you some insight as to what folks were thinking. In the weeks leading up to this announcement, a lot of the executives in the company were moving a ton of shares of their Unity stock and selling it
A
off,
ton of shares.
knowing probably what was going to happen. Now,
Mr. Riticello himself has sold more than 50,000 shares
in the
and
past
bought zero
year.
in the last year.
Now, to be fair to John Ricciello, him selling off Unity stock, as you can see from that bit of news, it's not abnormal behavior. It's not like it's not like he's been squatting on this stuff and then just sold it all in 2 seconds. But still, I mean, it's a pretty bad look when you have other folks on the board of directors, basically selling out for literally millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right before this announcement dropped, because again, they knew what the reaction was going to be, and they knew what it was going to do to the share price.
Yeah. Worth noting, I think the two worst offenders here. So Riticello moved about 2,000 shares within the last, since September started, which is not a lot when you consider how many he's moved this year.
Right.
But then you have president of Growth, Tomer Barziv, who sold 37.5 thousand shares on September 1st, which comes out to about 1.4 million United States real money bucks. And then Shlomo Dovrat, who sold 68,000 shares on August 30th for 2.5 million. So this is the kind of shit that causes federal agencies to start looking at what you're doing. I didn't work in finance reporting for too terribly long, but I worked in it long enough for this to raise many red flags. So it wouldn't surprise me if, again, someone in the government starts prying at what they're fucking doing.
But will it? Because if you recall, a couple of years ago, we talked about Unity and how they have apparently the other way that they make all of their money is through all these government contracts that they don't publicize or let people know that they.
Maybe, but again, I think this is the kind of thing that really does raise some red flags for folks. So it wouldn't surprise me if some federal investigators are taking a hard look at what Unity's up to.
It at least looks astonishingly bad. The optics are fucking terrible.
Yeah.
So in the wake of all this, they put forth a pretty mealy-mouthed apology on Twitter. The same boilerplate, we hear you.
We hear you. We're so sorry for any confusion.
We're talking to all of our partners and customers in our community and blah, 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 blah.
I think what really stood out to me is that they said we apologize for the confusion and angst the runtime fee policy we announced caused. And that to me feels so condescending. That word choice really stands out to me. That's, we know best, and you guys are just a bunch of angsty youths, and you don't understand, and you're just confused by what we're trying to do here. Thank you for your feedback. We'll have an update in a few days, but we're so sorry. No, go fuck yourself, dude. No one's buying it, basically.
So some of the things they floated out that they plan on changing, or not even changing, but clarified about the announcement, is that they said that they're looking at capping revenue. So basically, they would cap the fees at 4% of a game's revenue for folks whose game made over $1 million. They also said that they will calculate these fees based on the developers' self-reported data and not like magic service I guess they were planning on using to look at this shit before. But again, I don't. Again, they could completely reverse this. They could completely wipe this off of the board, and I think the damage is done. If you're a developer, why in your right mind would you now want to use Unity, even if they don't change anything, just because this happened? That trust is so shattered. There's other competitors out there, even small, not just Unreal, but there's Godot that's also popular out there and stuff like that, which I think is open source, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, what's funny is Unity had this all hands on deck meeting earlier this week, where many employees apparently asked leadership how the company could regain that trust with devs following that announcement. And something we haven't really touched on is the fact that Unity quietly altered its terms of service back in April to remove a clause that would let devs stick with previous versions of their document if updates adversely impacted their rights, which to me screams breach of contract.
And gives away the game. Like it lets you
Yeah.
know how long this has been in the works, probably.
Exactly.
And it also, like, so people are like, oh, it's not that weird that John Ricciello is selling Stairs. You don't know how long that they plan to roll this out. Like if they decide on this course of action.
If this was something that they had been kicking around since April, and he's sold 50,000 over the course of the year, then and of course the fiscal year starts in April. So he's sold presumably 50,000 shares since April. So he's probably sold 50,000 shares since he's known they were going to do this. I think it's safe to presume such a thing, which means he's just the only one on the board smart enough to not do it all at once.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, Unity's fucked. Unity is seriously fucked on this, and yeah, I think they'll roll it back. Devs are going to jump ship anyway, and it wouldn't surprise me to see multiple lawsuits, if not, like a class action come out of this.
Well, and that's the thing, because like the thing that really just pisses me off and everybody off about this is that this boils down to nothing more special than it's just corporate greed. So the reason that Unity wants to do this is because the Unity engine, the licensing of the Unity engine, and the costs it take to maintain it, and putting runtime out there and all that other crap, is a drain, like it's a negative impact on their financials. It's what people in corporate America refer to as a loss leader. Every single company in the world that's successful usually has one or two products or services or groups of products that are loss leaders. They're things that you sell that either don't make you much money or in fact lose money, but it gets people in the door or it helps support your other profitable services, which makes your money. So you have this one red line on your balance sheet, but that one line being red makes all of this other stuff be in the black heavily. And again, Unity is not like some long-suffering company. They had record profits last year, much like many other corporations.
Many other corporations that have had record profits.
Right. But it's not. But again, as usual, and if you listen to Look Forward, we talk about this shit all the time. It's not enough to make a lot of money. It's not enough to make like an ungodly sum of money. No. We have to make all the money. We need to make sure every single thing on this balance sheet, on this P&L, is in the black. So we're going to make sure that the Unity engine is a profitable part of our business. But it doesn't need to be a profitable part of your business. Like your business is doing just fine with Unity costing whatever it costs to make the engine, because that's what gets people in the fucking door. That's what gets people in that's using your product. And again, like from a usability standpoint, not a lot of complaints about Unity. Like it is basically the go-to engine for if you're a small indie developer. It's because it's affordable, it's easy to use, it's easy to learn, it works well. This is literally like fucking choking a golden goose if you're Unity for nothing other than greed, for nothing other than to squeeze that much more money out of these companies, because all they do is they look at all of these games that are free to play games and games that are like gacha games and games on mobile that are raking in millions and millions and billions of dollars, and they're just like, how can we get a piece of that pie? How can we get a fucking slice? Because they're using our engine, and god damn it, we're not making enough money because we're providing the framework for that game, and so we should be getting more money. Because look at all that money they're taking. How dare they take that money? We need some of that shit too. That is literally all it boils down to at the end of the day. So it's fucking gross. It's despicable, and it created a level of tumult that frankly was not needed at all right now. Like, what a great year it's been for games, like, all over the spectrum, AAA, indie, all over the place, first party, third party. Like, it's been a fucking great year for video games, and Unity just has to fucking be the turd in the punch bowl to ruin everyone's good time. I will say what you should not do to reply to this is call in a violence threat against
I mean, there's
against Unity.
some yes and no. I mean,
Yeah.
with this story in particular, obviously, no, don't ever fucking call in a
Yeah,
threat.
yeah.
But with this thing in particular, it was, they were supposed to be like the all hands meeting that happened this week was supposed to be last week.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was offices in Austin, Texas and San Francisco closed due to what they described as a credible death threat.
Mm-hmm.
But then, after the fact, news came out that it was like, oh, like the reporting party said that the employee, like this, the call came from inside the house.
Yeah,
here.
so it was a Unity employee.
It was a Unity employee, and the reporting party said that the employee works at an out-of-state location for the company. So this is someone who works remote for the company,
mm-hmm.
and wasn't in California or Texas, and they shut everything down anyway. And then we're like, oh, we can't do this, they're making death threats against us, and it turned into a whole thing that it really wasn't. But yeah, obviously, like, don't do that,
Right, because when you do stuff like that, so like we saw it last year with Ubisoft Montreal, how they had a bomb threat like called into their building or stuff like that. Like when you do that, you distract from
the issue,
from the actual issue, and you make it about something else. So, not that anyone listening to this show would ever do such a thing, but yeah, just don't do that. I'm struggling to see where they go from here. And again, if I'm Godot, or if I'm fucking Unreal,
if I'm Unreal,
I'm putting on the fucking like I am in meetings every single day. Like, what can we fucking do to put out the full court press? To just fucking stand on Unity's throat and just choke them out of this industry, because they're primed right now. Like they're absolutely primed to be in that position, because this is a tremendous fuck up, and for nothing. Like for as much money as this move will probably make them, I'm just thinking of how much money it's going to cost them.
Right, but at this point, how much money could it possibly make them?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, if they're walking things back, if they're opting to cap things, and if presumably, again, I am assuming baseline there's going to be a class action.
Mm-hmm.
Baseline. And on top of that, I think you're going to see individual suits from Microsoft and Sony, who almost certainly did not sign up to have the buck passed to them regarding their subscription services.
Oh yeah.
And many devs jumping to other systems, and probably new devs just opting not to use them at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, again, how much money can they possibly make at this point?
Yeah. And also, who I feel the worst for, I think, in this situation, is any developers who have had projects that they've been working on for the last couple of years that aren't yet released, that have been
now
built
have to swap
in Unity, that now have to potentially slow down, possibly learn how to work with a new engine, which has its own proclivities that are attached to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just a fucking mess all the way around. And what's funny? Like, I would not at all be surprised if this ends in Riticello having to eventually step down from the company. And what's going to happen to him? Well, he'll probably just land at another.
He'll have
CEO
another golden
job.
parachute.
Yeah,
golden
parachute at the company. He'll end up as a CEO of somewhere else, because there's nowhere more common that failed CEOs end up than as CEOs of other companies. So, fucking sucks, man. Sucks. All right. So, in other fun whoopsie doodle corporate news, there was a leak that came out as part of this Microsoft FTC back and forth that's still kind of ongoing with the U.S. Trade Commission. And so what happened is Microsoft apparently submitted some documentation that was supposed to be redacted, but somebody did not redact it. And so as a result, some files have leaked out that have shed some light on some interesting things. One of them, everyone's kind of going gaga over, and I don't really understand why. There was a news story that like, oh, like, you know, there were reports and emails that said, you know, Phil Spencer was like, man, like it'd be pretty cool if we could buy Nintendo, huh? And people
Right,
were
but
like,
it's
oh,
like,
yeah, people were like, oh my god, Microsoft tried to get Nintendo. I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure you were just saying like, man, that'd be pretty great, but
yeah, I mean, Phil Spencer saying something that was recorded in a meeting does not mean that any actual effort was put forward.
right. And actually he clarified later and said that like actually like that was like I said that. He's like, but I also had like pour cold water on like other executives at Microsoft because like other people at Microsoft were like, yeah, we should try to do that, and I had to kind of tell them that like, it's probably not going to happen, like like no matter what, because Nintendo doesn't really want to be bought by anybody. So
I mean,
people
here's the thing about the Nintendo thing that no one's really talking about right now that may lend some degree of credibility to it. Everyone's talking about Phil Spencer wanting Nintendo or whatever.
Mhm.
But no one's talking about the fact that like he's been in touch with a former Microsoft board member who has been buying Nintendo stock
Mhm.
and has been, you know, in these emails that have leaked, he said, you know, they're sort of buying stock and looking to push Nintendo into a vulnerable position to be acquired through, you know, various means. And it's just like, I mean, all this being said, it's incredibly difficult for a foreign company like
it is.
Microsoft to try and do a hostile takeover of a Japanese-based company like Nintendo.
It's also kind of like the one note that I saw that just felt really condescending to me is like Phil Spencer's like, yeah, he's like, you know, Nintendo, I don't think they realize that like their long-term future is like not in the hardware business, and like, you know, we just have to, you know, try to get him to understand that, and you know, a little bit sooner. And I'm just
right,
like, shut
but
the
it's
fuck
like,
up, man. Like they
the
literally
fuck up,
had like
they've sold 1 billion Switches. Like
right.
the Switch has, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Switch has far outpaced the Xbox Series.
Oh,
Consoles.
I'm pretty sure that the Switch has outpaced both the Xbox One. Like, if you combined the sales of the Xbox One and the Xbox Series consoles, I'm pretty sure that they still have sold more Switches since that came
Yeah,
out. So.
the Nintendo Switch is currently the third best-selling console of all time at
Yes.
129.5 million units sold so far.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the
the
Xbox
is
Series X and
unreported.
S, approximately 21 million.
Yeah.
PlayStation 5 approximately 42 million. So, I don't know what the fuck our boy Phil is talking about here. Their future's not in the hardware business. They have 3 of the top 5 best-selling systems of all time.
Yep.
Shut the fuck up, dude.
Okay. What was interesting though is that there were apparently some leaked internal documentation about some mid-cycle console refreshes that Microsoft has planned coming down the line. The most newsworthy,
named after a pair of white girls, apparently.
Yeah, I like the ones. It's Brooklyn.
The code names are really dumb.
Broklin, not Y.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Brooklyn, but with an I.
and then L.
An all digital Xbox Series X.
Yeah, which is cylindrical and not cube shaped as all Xboxes have been so far. To Carrie's point, no disk drive, so it would be all digital. They'd be putting it into the same price, reduced power usage and Wi-Fi 6 and updated Bluetooth and all sorts of other stuff. Not too much there except for like the form factor, I think, to really write home about. The Series S refresh would be basically the same console.
Yeah, it looks exactly the same. It's just like more internal storage. The controller is, apparently also going to be refreshed, which, me as a enormous fan of the Xbox controller, I'd love to see how they update it even further.
Yeah, well, the big thing here, I think, the fact that they apparently plan on putting a rechargeable and swappable battery inside the controller. So like it'll have a rechargeable battery that it'll come with, but it's also swappable so that if you need to ever replace it, or if you just want to have like 2 batteries and just swap between them so you're not plugged in, it will have that in there as well. I don't like the proposed aesthetic look of the controller. Which
The two-tone shit that's obviously just cribbing off of PS5.
yeah, well, someone said they're like, oh, it looks like it was dipped in something, and
Yeah,
that is kind of what it looks like.
Look like it was dipped.
Yeah.
This Oreo ass looking controller.
What else do we have here? Haptic feedback in the controller. So I guess they realized that people are a big fan of the haptics that the PS5 controller has as well. Lift to wake. So apparently, like, you'll be able to pick up your Xbox controller, you turn your Xbox on. I can see that being a major problem, actually. If you're just like,
it feels like you should probably be able to like turn that off.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
I would assume so. So the controller looks like the most interesting thing. According to Microsoft, they said that, oh, this is all old news. I think they're just trying to kind of pour some cold water on some of this stuff, even though this stuff looks very official. Like this basically looks like press release documentation that they had in the pipe, kind of ready to go. Not to mean that things couldn't change, obviously, but I would imagine that all of this stuff is probably at least planned, if not kind of set in stone. Apparently, they're looking to launch these console refreshes in fiscal year 2025, which is actually late next summer.
Yeah.
Essentially, so.
So basically, they want to have the Series S would be out end of August, and then the updated Series X would be out end of October, so right before the holiday season. And then the updated controller would be May, and yeah, they would be unveiling details at the Xbox Gaming Beat in June. Mm-hmm. So during Jeff Keighley's summer gaming jack-off extravaganza. But yeah, it's, I mean, this is to be expected. We are, midway through a console generation. So yeah, I'm not entirely surprised by this. I still think these consoles are ugly as sin, and
you're not even a fan of that. Like I said, I love the unique aesthetic of the PS5. It is.
No, I think the PS5 is fine.
Okay.
I'm talking specifically about the Xbox.
Oh yeah, the Xbox is boring as shit.
Yeah.
I wonder how they decided on Xbox. A cylindrical shape. Like, I wonder if they. I just wonder if they have data that shows like the percentage of people who have their Series X upright as opposed to like laying down on its side. Because obviously with the cylindrical one, you can't just lay it down. Unless they sell
Here's the thing,
little feet.
They're absolutely going to sell it with little feet. They're absolutely going to sell it with little feet. Because, the PS5 has the stand for it too. You know, you can stand it up or you can lay it down. They would be stupid to sell a cylindrical console without the ability to lie it on its side, because a lot of people will keep that shit in their media centers where there's not enough room to stand up that big ass little fridge looking thing.
What's funny is the little feet are just going to be two like little U-shaped brackets that you just sit the system on that have rubber feet, and they're going to charge like $30 for
100%. They're going to charge $30 for it, and then they'll charge $45 for you to have one with fucking Mr. Halo Man on it.
Mr. Halo Man.
Mr. Chef.
His name is Mr. Chef. You put some respect on his name.
I'll never forget. Quick tangent. I will never forget working the Halo Reach launch, or like the lead up to Halo Reach at GameStop, and someone asked if I knew what it was about, and I was like, I don't know, man. That's another one of those Mr. Chef games, and he got so mad at me. This like 19-year-old boy was like, his name's Master Chief, and I was like, I fucking know what his name is, dude. Are you gonna pre-order the game or not?
It's since you brought it up, like it was reminded of me. That a couple days ago was GTA 5's 10-year anniversary. God. And I still, like I said, I still remember that launch at Towson Marketplace that I worked with you and Mike Eversley. And the store was as full as I've seen that store on a Black Friday, basically.
Dude.
Which was crazy.
I don't miss that.
My, how far we've come. since then. So
people are still fucking playing GTA 5. We haven't come that far.
Playing GTA 5. That is 100% correct. Unfortunate news. I made a quip last week about how the new EA game Immortals of Avum, which released a couple of weeks ago, it was not doing well. I think.
I wonder why. It's almost as if it was released in the midst of multiple
between
other
Baldur's Gate and Starfield, like literally out to the killing fields. The game after it came out, which was a full, like, $70 AAA, EA release, peaked at 800 or under 800 concurrent players on Steam shortly after launch, which is not great. A month later, it was at 74 concurrent players on Steam, and so what you expect to happen happened. The studio behind it, who was Ascendant Studios, this is their first game that they had ever published, laid off about 45% of their staff. So about 40 of the 80 to 100 people that the studio employed, unfortunately, have been laid off due to the lack of success. Another thing that was pointed out is that apparently, because the game had like really crazy high,
really intense tech requirements,
only 9% of PCs qualified to be able to run the game at all.
How the fuck are you gonna, again, just absolute boneheaded shit. Like, look, I'm sorry for the folks who got laid off from this studio, but like, did no one in charge there understand what they were doing? One, on a level, sure, Baldur's Gate 3 is much more of a mainstream success than I think anyone expected it to be. It's, I think a lot of people completely misjudged how successful Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be. I've played the first two, and I was like, no one's going to fucking play 3. And everybody's playing 3. Much to my delight. But what blows my mind is, like, again, you're releasing within a couple weeks of Starfield, and your tech requirements for a shooter game, for a fucking Rudy McTooty pew pew shooty game, 9% of PCs, only 9% of PCs are equipped to fully run this game?
Yeah.
Who thought this was going to be a good idea? Like, the releasing too close to Starfield situation, that just makes it a Kingdoms of Amalur situation, right? But the tech requirements on this game, no one stopped to think, gee, we're really kind of limiting our audience here by making this the way that it is.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is I'm not letting EA off the hook either. I don't remember seeing a lot of coverage around this game. Like, I think they did one. I think
they didn't market it.
Yeah, they did one preview event. I didn't see any commercials. I didn't see a lot of like, it wasn't top of the page on Steam, stuff like that. So like when you have a new IPs have it tough enough as it is. Even tougher when it is, again, coming out at a time traditionally where games don't usually sell very well, the end of summer, coming out at a time where you picked like the worst year to release at the end of summer, sandwiched in between the two top games of the year, probably, arguably, obviously, like, not including Zelda in that list, but, arguably the two best games of the year, and Armored Core,
of the top 3 games of the year, and Armored
Core, which has also been a darling of sorts. You're not marketing the game. No one was really sure what the game was about. Like, people that saw previews were like, sure, like, your guy's running around, he can shoot magic out of his hands, but I couldn't tell you anything plot-wise or anything like that. And the game, while it was polished and while it, was put together well and didn't have a lot of technical issues that were reported, was very firmly like a 7 out of 10, which is fine, but it's not going to get you huge sales.
It's not going to get you sales when you spend that much money developing it. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if 5 years down the line, people who slowly but surely upgrade their machines to newer technology and are able to run this sort of stuff standard in 5 years, If this becomes somewhat of like a cult darling
Well,
5 to 10 years
especially
from
too,
now,
especially too once like the price falls down.
a
If
price
you
drop and
get this game for $25 and people are like, yeah, fucking hey, it's a great
generally
$25
more
game.
accessible technology, I think will make this game weirdly popular 5 to 10 years from now. I'm just gonna dog ear that.
No, I
Come
think
back to that
you're
idea.
100% right. Like, especially if there's nothing wrong with the game in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's just not the right time, not the right price point. You know, like
No.
that's another way you could have aggressively marketed this is by, sell it for $50.
Yeah.
Just get it out there and get it in people's hands. Because again, $70 is a big threshold to jump over nowadays. So,
Yeah.
so I like I said, I feel for those folks that lost their jobs. I don't think that they were sent out to win, honestly, by EA. And again, we've seen this before. No. Titanfall 2 is probably the shining example of EA literally sending a title out to die, and it flopping as a result. And then to Carrie's point, now that game is a darling of the industry.
Yeah.
That everyone speaks incredibly highly of. That just got an update. This week.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, they did a big Titanfall 2 update this week. That game came out like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And people are finally coming around on it, which is nice to see. I mean, this happens with games sometimes where these, games are sort of sent out to die, basically, as you said, and there's not much to sort of do about it in the moment, especially in a situation like this, where literally, again, less than 10% of people who have PCs have the ability to actually run the game. So I think once technology, mainstream tech ownership advances to whatever the next generation happens to be on that front, you'll probably see people start to come around on this. Yeah. But for the time being, yeah, it sucks to see that many people laid off at once.
And what's interesting too is that like now that EA has kind of split their two gaming divisions into two separate things between sports and not sports, it seems like they're going to be pretty aggressive in tamping down on costs. Part of the other thing that came along with the story is it's rumored that they're going to stop. They're not going to continue support on Wild Hearts, which was the Monster Hunter like that came out from Koei Tecmo earlier this year, which launched with a bevy of technical issues. The game apparently itself was pretty good, but it just had a lot of bugs and shit like that they've been working on. But this was a game that they planned on supporting almost to like a live service level, much like Monster Hunter does, where they've released like new monsters and new hunts and stuff like that as time goes along. But apparently the game didn't do good enough to support it, and now here we are 8 months later, and they're just like, we're gonna drop that. So again, if you're a developer, and EA's hold their hand out saying, hey, like we'd love to bring you in and publish your game, maybe look elsewhere.
Before we jump into the next story, just a quick addendum to the earlier Unity stuff, because I just saw this come across my feed. Relogic, the developer of Terraria, put out a statement today that said, even if Unity were to recant their policies, the destruction of trust is not so easily repaired. We feel that it's now equally important to get behind some of the other up-and-coming open-source game engines. To that end, we're donating $100,000 to FNA and Godot. Additionally, we are sponsoring each of these projects with $1,000 a month each moving forward. All we ask in return is that they remain good people and keep doing all that they can to make these engines powerful and approachable.
Good job, Unity.
So yeah, again, fucking plus Unity, like not like you're literally driving funds to your competitors now.
Fantastic.
Remarkable. Anyway, let's talk about Embracer.
Yeah, I was gonna say another company. If you're a developer that you might want to steer clear of is the Embracer Group. We talked about how they bought during when interest rates were low, and now they're looking to sell.
Because they fucked up a $2 billion deal.
They fucked up a $2 billion deal. One of those things that assets they're looking to sell almost immediately. Gearbox, who they notably bought back in 2021, just 2 years ago, for $1.4 billion, and now they are looking to get Gearbox the hell out of their stable because they can make money.
Yeah, it's really what they can make the most money off of fast. So look, Embracer was really aggressive within basically the last 2 to 3 years in acquiring a lot. They brought Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, Square Enix Montreal last year. They bought the licensing rights to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. They said they acquired Gearbox. Look, basically they were trying to really consolidate a lot of sort of things floating around in the video game industry into itself, and that consolidation is collapsing because again they botched a $2 billion deal, and now they're trying to reduce their debt to less than several $billion.
I don't even think the $2 billion deal was the catalyst. I think that was just a symptom of the underlying disease, which is they spent too much money and they didn't make the plan to have revenue coming in. Like that was the other problem. Now it didn't help them that Saints Row was a veritable flop. I'm sure they were counting on a lot of revenue coming in from that. That didn't necessarily happen. But they've just been buying, and not with any strategy behind those acquisitions. I think they just said, "Ooh, like Gearbox, Borderlands, they make a lot of money. Like let's fucking do that shit." And that was really the extent of thought. Now that being said, if Microsoft or Sony are not very quickly looking to make an offer to scoop these guys up, because again, you can get the Borderlands stable. I know like there's a new Risk of Rain game coming out, which is very popular, and Gearbox has a lot of smaller developers underneath their publishing arm. So again, that would just make complete sense, especially for Microsoft to come along and swoop them up. That seems like a no-brainer to me, especially because if you could probably offer Embracer like $800 million, and they would probably just take it just to offload
capital. The debt.
Yeah. So, very briefly, SAG-AFTRA has voted unanimously to expand its strike to include the video game industry as well. Now that negotiations between game actors and game publishers, I should say, have broken down. And again, one of the other sticking points underneath, especially on the gaming side, but also on the picture side, is the use of AI in these studios and defining what that looks like. So more to come on this. Again, this is very early days. I'm sure we'll see a lot more stuff coming.
I mean, the last time it's worth noting that like the last time that there was a strike that involved voice actors, we learned a whole lot about who the fucking scabs are in this industry. We learned real quick who the scabs are, and I'm sure this is going to expose these people once again. So just something to keep in mind when, there are a lot of voice actors out there who people are huge fans of their works. There are a lot of voice actors out there who voice beloved characters who are scabs. So it's just something to maybe pay attention to if you are the kind of person who expresses solidarity with, industry workers in the entertainment business who are fighting for their rights, especially as AI abuse is already starting to run rampant. Just keep in mind who is scabbing right now, because there's a lot of non-union voice actors who are ready to just swing into these roles who do not give a shit about anyone but themselves.
That's why Mike is not on the show this week, because he was afraid that coming on Dense Pixels would be a scab move. Micah, don't worry. I talked to SAG-AFTRA, and they said they approved doing the Dense Pixels podcast specifically as being non-scab work in the industry. So good to go there.
Jesus Christ. And then after all of this shit,
there's
we
a Nintendo
still have
Direct.
to talk about the Nintendo Direct.
And a State of Play. Now, the good news is that I don't think that either presentation was like massive.
No.
Like there were a lot of small announcements. I think the biggest announcement from the Nintendo Direct was the Paper Mario. They're doing
Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is getting a remaster. I'm not the biggest Paper Mario fan in the world, but I'm going to play this. This game looks crispy as fuck on the Switch. This, it's, Thousand Year Door, a GameCube classic, and a game that is prohibitively expensive if you want to own a copy today. So it's nice that Nintendo is putting it back out, because for folks who don't want to, use emulators, folks who want to play it on a Nintendo console. I'm glad that they are enabling people to do it, because ultimately, of the entire Paper Mario franchise, Thousand Year Door is really the standout. And it's not even close.
It is fascinating to me that the price for physical retro games still remains incredibly high.
When I could go into
I know, we don't have time for all that, and we've talked about it before. But like when emulators are a thing, I mean, it just goes to show you that it really is just a commodity thing.
It's a commodity thing. Yeah. I think for a lot of folks, there's a moral objection to emulators or shit like that, and I sort of understand that on a level. I think it's stupid on many others. But ultimately, look, it's a game that is very much a standout in the Mario franchise, and I'm sure this was a very easy thing for them to remaster and put out on the Switch.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. I'm glad more people are going to have the opportunity to play it. Cool. Sometime next year. We don't know an exact date yet.
Yep. I got very excited when they teased something F-Zero related, and then I got a little less excited when I saw it was 16-bit, like the 16-bit graphics. I'm like, oh, it's not a new F-Zero. And they're like, but it is a new F-Zero. It's F-Zero 99.
And
let me tell you something.
I've been playing that today.
It's fucking fun, man, isn't it?
Really fun. you would think an F-Zero fan.
You would think a 99 person racing game on a relatively small track would be not fun, like with as chaotic as it is. But no, it's
perfectly chaotic. It's chaotic for sure, but it's the perfect amount of nonsense. And what's so nice is because it's F-Zero, most of the matches are only about 2 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And you still get points. You don't have to come in first, second, or third place. You still get points as long as you fucking finish the race. Mm-hmm. Or you can rank out, or you can crash out still. Where it's and ranking out is sort of difficult to do. You have to come within the last 5 people to cross the finish line each lap to rank out. I've been playing it today. I'm not much of an F-Zero fan outside of the vibes. Mm-hmm. I like the vibe of F-Zero. I think the character designs are really cool. I love the music. I am dog shit at that game, dude. I've never been good at F-Zero.
There is a strategy to this. I'm learning it slowly but surely. I have not won yet. My highest placement so far has been 14.
Okay.
In a race, if
I've been placing right at the fucking middle of the pack every single time. I am between 50 and 65 every single time.
If you remember our Discord, if you go to the general channel, Johnny posted a hell of a race from him where he won at the death with this much energy left on his bar as he's smoking and going across the line. I'm pretty bad at the Grand Prix though. I haven't made it past the second race of a Grand Prix because I keep crashing out.
I've done the mini Grand Prix. I haven't crashed out. I've finished. I haven't finished well, but I've finished them.
Yeah.
It's very fun. I love a game where it's I can pick it up, I can play it for 10 minutes, I can feel like I've done something, and I can just move on with the rest of my day.
It's man, they really just every 99 game they put out so far has been great. Varying degrees of stickiness. Obviously Tetris has been the stickiest of all of them.
Yeah.
But even Mario 99 was fun. Pac-Man.
Mario 35 was good, but then they pulled it. That was only around for a short time too.
Well, Pac-Man they pulled as well. They pulled that shortly before this came out. So, I would imagine this is probably going to be also a limited time, which is a bit of a bummer. I'm hoping that it does really well because I would like Nintendo to understand that there is still a market for a new F-Zero game, which they haven't put out since GX.
I think the big thing about F-Zero as a franchise is so many of the things that made F-Zero stand out as a racing franchise were ultimately folded into Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Which means that Nintendo just hasn't really been sure what to do with F-Zero, because I think one of the devs from the F-Zero team, or at least from the folks who made the more recent games, basically said we've done everything that we wanted to do, and now we don't know what to do.
I think
I would almost want to see a remaster of the fucking GameCube game or something like that. GX, I think, would be very deserving of a remaster.
I think you could take a look at what the Wipeout series did. So like the Wipeout series on PlayStation, they had some really good games that not a lot of people played, but they had like a shitload of content. They had a really smart like advancement system through like the single player campaign and stuff like that. In Nintendo's hands, like I think you could take that and make it a really interesting product. So I kind of hope that that's what they look toward. But I would like a new F-Zero because it's been a very long time.
It has been a very long time. And again, it wouldn't surprise me if F-Zero 99 was a way for them to basically like dip the toe in the water with a game that probably didn't cost a whole lot to make. I mean, clearly they put a lot of thought into this.
Yes.
But it's a game that I have to imagine wasn't a prohibitively expensive thing for them to do.
No, I mean, that's why they keep doing these 99 games, because they're super cheap to develop.
So I think this is something where they're probably going to see like what the sustained interest is in F-Zero 99 and take the series from there. But yeah, F-Zero 99 fucking rips, dude. Yeah. Like I'm probably gonna play some more of it tonight. The standout for me in this Nintendo Direct was the fact that we're getting a fucking Trace Memory remaster in the year of our Lord 2K24. Trace Memory was like a launch title for the DS in 2005. I played this game when I was in high school. I may still have my copy. I'm not sure. It's a really interesting little like narrative puzzle game. She's searching for her missing dad. You solve a lot of puzzles. You use the touch screen. You know, the Switch has a touch screen and also has motion controls. There was also a sequel to Trace Memory that only ever came out in, I think Japan, maybe Europe, but it was never released in America. It was called Another Code R, because the series in Japan has always been called Another Code. And so we're getting Another Code Recollection, and it's both games remastered on Switch, which I think is fabulous. And I can't imagine they're going to charge more than fucking $40 for this.
Probably not.
And so if you're into puzzlers at all, definitely pick it up. This isn't a game I think I have thought about within the last 15 years. So I was like pretty stoked to see this on the presentation.
So for me, the other Nintendo thing that I saw that caught my eye, I've talked about how tactical games are not really my thing.
Yep.
But I'm willing to give them a chance if you can get in another entity that I like a lot, to kind of be that bridge, right? So like that's why like when P5T comes out later this year, like I'm gonna get that and play it because I like Persona 5, and so like hopefully that can be the bridge. I also like Vanillaware a lot.
Yeah.
And they are partnering with Atlas, and they're coming out with a tactical fantasy adventure game. It's coming out next spring, and
it's got the most Vanillaware ass title of any game I've seen in a while.
This has a Square ass title on it.
No, I mean, no.
It's called Unicorn Overlord. That's right. If it was a Square title, it'd be Unicorn Overlord : Project T573R RE.
I don't know. This falls in line with like Grim Grimmery and Odin Sphere for me.
It does. It does.
But it's funny because like this started and I was like, this is some Vanillaware ass character design, isn't it? And then they were like Vanillaware, and I was like, okay, word, solid.
But what's annoying is that like I'm gonna have to play this on Switch because their games never come to fucking PC, and I don't know why.
Nah,
it's annoying. I'd like to play 13 Sentinels, but I'm not doing it on my PlayStation. I don't feel like. So I want that on a handheld.
Yep.
But yeah, so that looks interesting. The PlayStation.
Hold on, just to touch on a couple other things on Nintendo Direct. Just Princess Peach Showtime was the earlier this year we had the Nintendo Direct where they teased a Princess Peach game, and this is the Princess Peach game. I think it looks really cool. You basically get like magical girl transformations that give her different abilities. Everybody's gay for Sword Fighter Peach, as they should be. Just a couple other quick hits before we move on. There's a new Saga game coming out from Square Enix next year. And most hilariously, Trombone Champ has come to the Switch, featuring basically like you can move the thing up and down. You can move your Joy-Con up and down, or you can use what I have started to just refer to as theremin controls. Where like you hold it and like you move your hands close to the fucking IR sensor. It's also got a multiplayer version of, or a multiplayer mode for Trombone Champ. I haven't gotten to do it yet. I haven't downloaded Trombone Champ on my Switch yet, but I've seen footage of my friends playing it, and Trombone Champ already is one of the most hilarious games of the last 5 years. And the multiplayer version may just elevate that still. It's so fucking silly.
How are you not putting classic Nintendo songs in this as part of this?
I have to imagine because the developer of Trombone Champ is still a very small studio, and they would probably have to pay licensing fees to do that.
Well, but it wouldn't surprise me. Could you imagine how successful that would be?
I mean, look, I think I have to imagine it's a possibility, and it'll probably start to happen on the Nintendo Switch version.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed on that, but I am looking forward to playing multiplayer Trombone Champ because that game's fucking silly in the best way. Anyway, State of Play also happens.
Yeah, State of Play, I mean, the biggest thing here, obviously, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer that they showed off, which showed off nothing but everything at the same time. Like,
I mean, it's got a release date. Yeah. That's the big thing. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out February 29th. Also, one young Mr. Matthew Mercer will be voicing Vincent. Good for him, especially because when I first met Matt Mercer at conventions probably 20 years ago, he was known as the Sephiroth cosplayer. So I'm really glad that he has now come full circle from being a fucking turbo nerd who cosplayed Sephiroth and basically only Sephiroth for a little bit. He just like kept upgrading his wig and his shit. That now he's a primary voice actor in the Final Fantasy VII franchise. So good for him.
Tales of Arise is getting a DLC. They showed an extended look at the Avatar game, which Avatar is just one of those series for me that just like it invokes nothing in me. I've never seen any of the movies. Every time I've seen an Avatar game trailer, like it just looks like blah.
So I saw the first Avatar movie in theaters when it came out, and the second one I watched this summer on a plane, but like over the shoulder of the guy who was watching it in front of me I was but he had subtitles on, okay. So it was look, I've seen it at this point.
And then stupid. And then the Separate Ways DLC for Resident Evil 4 remake is out this week, I think. So those are the big things that came out on the PlayStation State of Play side. So not a whole lot to really talk about, except for the Final Fantasy trailer. So
yep.
All right. So before we get to the post office, I do love grown men wetting their pants on the internet. Yeah. And there's a video of a British YouTuber who I'm assuming is just really fun at parties, losing his fucking mind while he was playing Starfield, when they had the gall, the audacity to ask you to select your preferred pronouns for your character in Starfield, as if this was some sort of leftist.
Yeah, exactly. Even though games have been asking you for your fucking gender identity since fucking Pokemon Gold and Silver,
right?
Pokemon Crystal, I guess was the first one.
I wonder if they get upset just because, like you said, it's because it's not tied to a body type, right? Like if it was just in there, you know what I mean?
I guess that has probably something to do with it. Yeah. But like, my favorite thing where it's like people who insist that they don't have pronouns, like, bitch, you exist. Everybody's got fucking pronouns. Right. It's part of language.
So another thing that Starfield and Bethesda games generally are known for is having a very healthy and quick reacting mod scene. Nexus mods right now is where you go to get most of your Starfield mods because there is no official mod support yet. Apparently that's coming next year. And then there was someone put a mod out that got rid of the pronoun options in the game's character creator. And Nexus mods saw that and kicked them off the platform, basically, and kicked their mod off the platform. And in their statement, they said that, quote, doing this is not a political statement or an alignment to one side or the other in the culture war. We stand for diversity and inclusion in our community, and removal of diversity while appealing to many does not promote a positive modding community. And you know what? They're right. So, good on them. And just fucking don't cry about having to pick your fucking pronouns in the game, especially because they aren't really that used.
It breaks immersion. Fucking how?
Yeah,
how does
they're
it
not
break
really that
immersion
used
for you
in the game. I don't feel like so.
No. Anyway.
Yeah. So we go to the next post
if you're listening to this podcast and you have a problem with pronoun selection in video games, stop listening to the podcast. I don't fucking want you here.
Or keep listening, but just hit dislike on all the YouTube videos. That's fine. Just
give us the engagement at least.
That's right. That'll be great. So we go to the Denspix post office. You can submit questions by going to joining our Discord at denspix.com/fans. I have to go back 2 weeks, so I am trying to figure out where we left off.
We are at Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Oh, no, I think Johnny, September 5th. Yeah, this is it.
Oh my God.
Johnny asks, are y'all treating yourself to 19 inches of Venom?
No.
I know, and Micah would be the most prone to this, but he is not going to buy... He doesn't really buy physical games anymore, so that's the only reason that I'm saying that he's not treating himself. Carrie, in case you're wondering what he's talking about, PlayStation announced the Spider-Man 2 Collector's Edition that comes with a Venom statue, and they literally advertise it as get 19 inches of Venom. So, yeah.
Look, there are other ways to get 19 inches of Venom, I'll tell you that much.
Cam asks, is Baldur's Gate 3 too fucking difficult, or do I just need to get good scrub? For what it's worth, I enjoy everything about the game. I just keep dying. No, it's very difficult.
It's a difficult game, yeah.
That's
why they have difficulty options. If you're playing unbalanced, I've been playing unbalanced, and I've run into issues plenty of times. And I play a lot of D&D, and I know what everything does. Just switch to story mode. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Play in a way that's going to make you happy.
Plenty challenging.
Oh, sure. Look, I'm not saying it's a fucking baby mode. I am saying that if you're playing on balanced and you find that it's too difficult, try playing on story.
But I will stay on balance because I am not a wuss like Cam. Film Wanderer asks, have any of you played the 80s and 90s heavily inspired 2D game called Broforce Forever? I have not played Broforce. I've seen Broforce.
I played a little bit of Broforce at a friend's house.
Yeah.
That's it though.
Yeah. I've never really been a big running gunner, 2D running gunner. It's never really been my genre. Gunstar Heroes is probably the one that I've liked the most in that genre.
What I will say is it's not a game I would play on my own, but playing it with a few of my friends has been fun the couple of times that I've done it.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, otherwise as Mark, asks, in your opinion, what games fit this graph of having extremely low game quality?
Game quality is a 1, soundtrack is a 10.
Yes.
Look, there's a few. Anything by fucking Tim Follin probably falls into that. Tim Follin. Look, Silver Surfer NES absolutely fucking falls into that. That is a garbage video game. Unnecessarily difficult. Not fun to play. The soundtrack by Tim and Jeff Follin. A ripper. An all-time fucking classic. Cheetah Man, which was on the Action 52. Unplayable. An unplayable game. But the tune that plays in that game is a banger. My initial response was Sonic 2006, and I stand by that. Sonic 2006 is a fucking abysmal video game experience. But the soundtrack is good. All Sonic games, the soundtrack is good. And it's its own vibe that's still sort of it still fits within the larger canon of Sonic music. I would encourage anyone who hasn't listened to the Sonic symphony performance of their Sonic 2006 like suite, which has like 3 or 4 different tunes in it, to go back and listen to that, because holy shit, it's so good with like the full like live orchestra and whatnot. For a while I had thought that a fun theme for the Baltimore Gamer Symphony Orchestra would just be to like play music from shitty video games. Like and I stand by that, because there's a lot of like really garbage games that just have really good soundtracks.
It's hard for me to answer this question because I generally associate myself with the soundtrack for a game by playing the game. So if a game sucks, like I'm not going to hang around long enough to experience it. Mark also did ask if there are any games that we could think of where the inverse was true, where the game was excellent but the soundtrack sucks ass. Slay the Spire doesn't have a great soundtrack. It's fine. The final boss music Against the Heart is excellent. But the rest of the soundtrack is just kind of like background music. Which is okay.
Yeah.
That came to mind initially. I can't think of too many other ones though, where that have like really crap soundtracks, where the game is.
I think there's plenty of games that I can think of that have like soundtracks. I think Baldur's Gate 3's soundtrack is kind of unmemorable. Yeah. I don't think, outside of the main sort of like motif that you hear constantly, there's not much that stands out to me in that game.
The only song I remember for that game is the one that plays during the title screen.
Yeah, like that shit. Yeah. So that's the only thing that stands out to me in Baldur's Gate 3. I wouldn't say it's like a 1 out of 10 soundtrack. Yeah. I would say it's like a 5 out of, just unmemorable,
T-Wash asks, what is your most gullible moment? My moment was when I was a kid and browsing the internet and believed the pop-up said that I won $1 million, and I told my mom that we were rich. When I was 5, I believed the Ghostbusters existed, and my dad perpetrated that lie. By telling me that he's been in New York and the firehouse is there and this, that, and the other thing. So that's probably the most gullible that I've ever been.
I can't remember anything like that. I feel like I was always kind of a suspicious kid. Someone would tell me something that I was like, that seems like bullshit.
Casa asks, given an opportunity to throw an NPC into the abyss without any repercussions, which insufferable companion first comes to mind for you?
Sarah from Dragon Age.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarah from Dragon Age Inquisition. The most annoying cunt in RPG history, I think. I can't fucking stand her.
Does Ashley from Mass Effect rise to that level? No, because you can just kill her in the first game. So there's not usually any issues there. I'm trying to think of any other like really annoying. Oh, Zeke from Infamous. Okay. Zeke can go away because he also causes problems in this game, so fuck that guy. Bane Supreme asks, probably more of a Micah question, but do you think Tekken 8 will break the tradition of only odd-numbered Tekken games being good? That is a Micah question. I'll say that Tekken 8 looks pretty dope so far. So, Film Wanderer asks, favorite independent game of 2023? I will dive into my Steam library for this.
Indies. I mean, I think the last indie that I played start to finish was Pentiment, which would have been at the tail end of last year. I purchased Sea of Stars today because I'm going to be spending 6 hours on a plane tomorrow. I had multiple people telling me like it's basically just Golden Sun, so like I'm sure I'm really going to like it.
I did hear that from a lot of folks talked about that.
Yeah, I had a lot of people say it has a very similar flavor to Golden Sun, so I'm really looking forward to starting that. Yeah, I haven't really played much in the way of like small indie titles this year, so Sea of Stars will probably be my first.
I have not played a lot of new indies this year. I'm finding out as I go down my list. Like most of what I've played this year have been like older indie titles that I just didn't get to. Super Mega Baseball doesn't count because they got acquired by EA, so that does not count any longer. I guess for me it'd be Tape to Tape, which is an early access on Steam. That's that roguelike hockey game that I've talked about quite a bit on the show, which is still getting updates. So that's probably it for me. Mad Coco G says, with the slight mini beat 'em up resurgence going on, is Capcom going to wait until it's over to do something with Final Fight, or are they just folding it into Street Fighter games? I think that
Coin flip, I think.
I would not be surprised to see them do something.
Yeah.
And even if that something is going to just get Night Dive or whoever's made all the good like beat 'em up games recently and just pay them a shitload of money. And say,
It wouldn't surprise me to see them just license that shit out.
Yeah, that would be the smart money. Rashawn asks, what is your thoughts on the new iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max having the ability to play AAA games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Village, Assassin's Creed Mirage without being streamed to the device? I think
there's a reason why these phones are fucking $1,000.
Well, there's a reason for that. We've been working our way to this point with phones.
Yeah.
The only problem that you still have is that it's still a relatively small form factor, which without a native controller solution. So you're either dealing with touch controls or you are getting like a backbone or something like that, which a backbone is fine. But I would not want to play like a game like Resident Evil 4 or Assassin's Creed Mirage with a backbone controller.
It's like, look, I'm not surprised that we're at the point where the hardware can fucking sustain AAA games natively. But one, again, there's a reason why these devices run between what I think a Pro is $1,000 and a Pro Max is $1,500. Something like that. It's not
quite that much of a discrepancy, but they're high. Yes.
Yeah, again, we're into four figures here.
Right.
And it's like, I guess it's nice that it can do that, but is that why you're buying the phone?
Yeah.
So look, hardware advancements are going to be what they're going to be, especially when it comes to smartphones. So no, I'm not surprised by it, but at the end of the day, who the fuck's going to be doing that?
Yeah, I can't imagine there is a ton of people that would do that.
No.
Johnny says, any 2023 gaming hot takes that you want to get off your chest?
No.
This is a safe space. How good is Tears of the Kingdom really? Because to me, it seems like the zeitgeist has fizzled quicker on that than it did on Breath of the Wild.
Maybe. I don't,
having
finished it
does require any analysis. I'm just that's just a hot take that I'm throwing out there. People can yell at me in the other one. Let's see here. Wither's ability to change the class of any party member if you approach him as them has completely spoiled me. This is in Baldur's Gate. If you had that option in any other game, who's a character that you liked but did not use because their class abilities or weapon style sucked? For me, and this will be sacrilege to a lot of folks, though I love Garrus to death, I rarely took Garrus out on missions because his class setup was too similar to my main character's class setup, and so I didn't need another of that character on the battlefield.
Yeah. I didn't use really fucking any of the rogues in Dragon Age Inquisition because I thought they were useless. And again, one of the three was Sarah, who sucks. But it's like I typically play rogue-ish characters anyway. So like I had no point of using them. I would roll with like 2 mages and a warrior with me. And even then it's like Blackwall, I liked his narrative, but I thought, why would I roll with Blackwall when I could roll with Iron Bull?
I also didn't really like using Haru that much in Persona 5. I only brought her along when I specifically needed
like an extra psi attack. Yeah. That's the thing is I wouldn't say there's any character in like any of the Persona games where I was just like, nah, I'm dumping this person as soon as I possibly can. Because I think like all of them, historically speaking, your party members, like you're the all-rounder and all of your party members are like focused into a specific thing. And that makes everyone sort of useful in their own way. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe Violet from Royal I would have respec'd into something a little more useful, because by the time you really get to use her full time, it's just sort of like, what's the point?
Yep. And then finally, No Not That Gerard says, just want to drop in the post office and say the ads have been hilarious. I've never been more interested in car insurance and tourism for Ireland. As always, I appreciate you for the dope podcast. So here's the thing about the ads on the show now is that while I think we can select like certain categories that we want the ads to be in, or I should say not even select, we can just exclude certain categories. What you hear is actually going to be catered to you, because I think ads are like generated based on like where you're downloading the podcast from. So really what you're getting is more introspective of things that you are interested in on the internet. So keep that in mind whenever you get whenever it pops up on your thing. Apparently a lot of casino ads floating around out there, which is funny, and really like a lot of props from the community for us getting to this point, which is weird, right? Like it's kind of weird that like, you know, people are like, oh, good job, you guys got ads, but it kind of is a big deal for us. Like we've been doing this for a long time, and
we have been doing this for a long time,
and finally kind of getting on an ad supported platform, though annoying. It's a big step for us, so I appreciate all the congratulations for everybody out there. So that is going to be it for the show this week. Thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and we will see you all the next time.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.